does it say about the president that he's dipping back in and taking us that deep to some really dark and concerning places?
That he only cares from the standpoint that it makes him look bad. He's not necessarily concerned about the victims. He's only concerned about how he looks or what his guilt may be. I'm like you, Stephanie. I can't remember students from 3 semesters ago. And those students are still taking classes with me sometimes. So the idea that you would remember someone who was a child, and that's a big thing for me about this. Mm-hmm. I don't say underage. These are children. Anyone who has spent time with a 16-year-old, they're babies. They are children. So the idea that this president is still rambling about this and has still not said the most obvious thing, which is, hey, we'll just release the information. I know I'm not guilty. We'll release the information. Everything he says is an indicator of his own guilt and his own shame. And anyone who backs him in this kind of behavior is just as complicit as the people who are directly involved with what was happening on that island. Joe Rogan, Andrew Schultz, Theo Von, none of these guys are going to change their vote. They're going to complain about it. They're going to gripe about it. They're going to talk about it in Congress, and they're going to vote the exact same way. That's why.
But hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. I'm not saying they're going to turn around and say, I'm voting for Kamala Harris. But these guys aren't dependable Trump voters. They could just as easily not show up. Right? Lots of young men, lots of young white men who are disenfranchised, disengaged, whatever, could say, it's raining next Tuesday. I ain't voting.
They could do that, but we're talking about a presidential election. We're talking about how this affects the president, because this isn't necessarily something that's automatically going to hit members of Congress in 2026. As far as Donald Trump is concerned, this is something that looks embarrassing, but these men, if given the choice between voting for him again and whoever the Democrats put up against him, I don't think they're going to change. That's why I think a lot of this is a tempest in the teapot. It's disgusting crimes. This should be a problem. But guys like Andrew Schultz are always the first ones to say, my gosh, this is terrible. But the moment that you flash trans teenagers in front of them or something else like that, they're going to go right back to voting for MAGA.
You're shaking your head.
There's a larger thing here that applies as far as when it comes to primaries or anything else like that. I am not convinced that this president will not try to run again. Yeah. And as long as that...
Okay, that's entirely fair. But
yeah. And so as long as he's going to run again, no one is going to allow themselves to entertain what life is like post-Trump. They have to deal with this. He is going to try to run again, which means all of these issues, you're just going to have to swallow them and smile and move forward, because unless there is a firm belief that this is going to end at some point, and I think anyone who thinks it's going to end in 2028 is being naive.
And what is going to end?
That this presidency will end. I don't necessarily believe that he's not going to try and run again. Now, we don't know what will happen. We don't know if he'll be successful. We don't know what the Supreme Court might say. But Bannon and many of his people have floated the idea of running again. And as long as that's out there, things like this scandal, people have to look at them in terms of like, hey, if this guy is still here, I got to deal with it.